All right, Psalm 68, let's call this one his business with 5 enemies in this chapter. That's in keeping with that theme we have for this week of mullet. Because in some of these chapters, God is going to handle his business on the front end, and on the back end, it's going to open the door for rejoicing for his people. And in this chapter, that's like the hairstyle called the mullet that was summed up as being a business style in the front, but a party style in the back. He's got 5 enemies he's dealing with. The first are those who just flat out hate him. The second are those who rebel against him, or maybe the things he's trying to accomplish. Third, those who are basically hating not only him, but the place where he dwells, and quite possibly the people who dwell in his holy place, his holy mountain, or what is sometimes described as his holy city. The fourth being those who persist in doing wrong. And then finally, those who love war, or at least conflict, as a means of getting their way. 2 things from this chapter haven't caught my attention, or at least 2 things. First being that last enemy described as those who lust after tribute and delight in war. Those who lust after tribute may be those who like to gain influence by way of a bribe or tribute, or those who like being able to receive money, tribute, or a bribe just to give someone undue access, or access that they might not be entitled to. But the thing that most caught my attention was probably, as we mentioned before, verse 27, who's leading them in the procession. There is Benjamin, the least of them, in the lead. That caught my attention because, as we mentioned in the last chapter, when we're talking about the salvation of God, one of the reasons why he is calling us to cleansing, what is sometimes a painful process in connection to our salvation, is that he is looking beyond simply saving us to restoring our honor, or possibly giving us a level of honor that we have never, ever realized. And the tribe of Benjamin reminded me of that, because they were the tribe who, back in the end of Judges, dragged the entire nation of Israel into a civil war. It started because they did not want to turn over a group of criminals amongst them who had committed a rape and a murder. And so after almost being annihilated in that civil war, Benjamin was spared. And more than simply being spared, they moved forward in a way that would eventually have God restore their honor, remembering that Saul, even though he was not an honorable king, was from the tribe of Benjamin. And so the first king from the nation of Israel came from the tribe of Benjamin. Likewise, moving forward to the New Covenant, or the writings of the New Testament, Paul mentions being from the tribe of Benjamin as if it is a source of potential pride or something to be honored, reminding us once again that when God saves, he does not have just our mere salvation as a potential goal. One of the reasons why he wants to clean us up is he wants to restore our honor. And insofar as he is trying to restore our honor, he is likewise trying to clean up our character so that we carry ourselves in honorable ways. Understanding that Benjamin is only one of a number of tribes that God forgave after they committed some very shameful acts. After Levi and Simeon, 2 brothers, committed some murders that went far beyond taking vengeance for an assault on their sister, God forgave them both. The tribe of Simeon ended up producing men who dragged the nation back into peril by continuing to make suspect choices that were narrowly self-interested. The tribe of Levi, however, took the zeal that they displayed in standing up for their sister, even though they did it in the wrong way, and they turned that into the kind of zeal that they would eventually use in defense of the temple and the tabernacle, understanding that they not only produced the priest, but the security for the temple and the tabernacle and all of the things that were used in its service. And moreover, we talked about the way in which all of the brothers conspired together to sell Joseph into slavery. However, one of them, Judah, distinguished himself as being one who was willing to sacrifice himself to bring peace to the family and peace to that situation once those brothers who sold Joseph into slavery were reunited with Joseph. Before he even knew that Joseph was the brother they sold into slavery, he stepped up and offered himself as a sacrifice to try to save Joseph's younger brother, Benjamin, seeming to try to make amends for the sin that they had committed against Joseph. However, Reuben, one of the other brothers, actually the oldest brother, who was described as the preeminent brother, even though he was described as preeminent in honor, he ended up drifting off into obscurity because he compounded his sin against Joseph by committing a sin against his father, sleeping with one of his father's concubines. And so in this chapter, we seem to see a tribe like Benjamin, a tribe that was forgiven a shameful sin, not only being forgiven or saved from the consequences of that sin, but now having their honor restored, largely in part to the choices they chose to make after they got their second chance. Wise choices that seem to fall in line with tribes like Levi and Judah, tribes that weren't simply forgiven, but had their honor restored and even elevated to a place potentially even higher than where it had been before they sinned, giving us another chance to consider that question of what are we doing with the second chances or new opportunities that God is giving to us? Are we simply seeking to be forgiven, or are we seeking for him to cleanse us in a way that will produce the kind of honor we can never find on our own?